The Denver Nuggets win Game 7, coming back from 3-1 down again behind Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray's big night. Murray goes for 40, Jokic goes for 16 points, 22 rebounds, 13 assists, and they basically controlled and dominated the whole game. In this film room breakdown, we're going to look at how they controlled the game, the Clippers' counters, anything they could have done differently, as well as some of the sets or non-sets the Clippers should have run. My name is Coach Gibson Piper. You can follow me on Twitter at HalfCourtHoops. If you enjoy this breakdown, please feel free to like and subscribe. Jokic is one of the best post-up players in the NBA, scoring, but also he's one of the best playmakers in the NBA, especially out of the post. The Clippers had a lot of trouble deciding what they were going to do, and they decided to trap him. And in this game, in Game 7, we had 18 Jokic post-ups. 5 of them the Clippers defended with single coverage, so just one player on him. 13 they trapped, and most of the time they trapped from the weak side. We can see Paul George coming from the weak side there. Now against single coverage, Jokic scored 1.26 points per possession, and when he's trapped, they went up to 1.36, leading to an overall of 1.34. The Clippers could not find a great solution to defend this post-up action. Here we see Kawhi and Zubac on the weak side. Kawhi is going to let Grant go to the basket, and Zubac should take him. Okay, so Kawhi passes him off. Zubac should have the low coverage, but instead, Jokic does this great hold, shows the ball, freezes Kawhi, and then Zubac recovers to the corner for some reason, and that allows an easy, wide-open layup. The Nuggets use a couple different actions to get Jokic in the post. Here we can see wedge action that forces Harrell to be late on post defense. When the trap comes here from Lou Williams, we're going to see Jokic turn and see and fire it. Green is responsible for the cutter and then recovers well. What this does is create closeout opportunities and puts the defense in scramble mode. Pretty good rotations here by the Clippers. Did an overall good job of running him off the line, but then Jokic finishes it with this offensive rebound that is just a backbreaker, and nothing makes you more angry as a coach. One of the things that I didn't like is when you trap the post, you can't get split, and the Clippers often got split or were found out of position. Here, Jokic splits, probably gets fouled by Paul George, but ends up being a turnover. Jokic's ability to bring the ball up the floor and then dribble right into a post-up just creates a lot of problems because there's no real action before them, so he can see where the trap is coming from. Right now we got Kawhi coming on the trap. Lou Williams takes the cutter in this scenario instead of passing him off like we saw Kawhi do, and that leaves Gary Harris wide open for the skip pass and an easy open 3 that he knocks down. We looked at getting split the first time. Here on this post-up, we can see Kawhi coming. Jokic is going to split it and then find Grant. Now this should be Lou Williams' rotation in my opinion. He should be helping off here and then the rotation's on the backside. Instead, Kawhi is forced to recover. Grant does miss it, but that's not a good sign. Now this possession to me is a little bit strange. So here we see Paul George is going to be on Murray. He's going to tell Beverly to go get Gary Harris, which is a good matchup, keeping him on Murray. Then he's just going to go and trap Jokic immediately from the strong side. Now, if you watch any Clippers film from the series before, majority of their traps come from the weak side. So they'll come from the player who's opposite the ball in the paint, never from the strong side or the player that is closest to Jokic. Doing that allows you to get burned, and you can see the weak side trap here over and over again. Now, Paul George decided to go from the strong side. Fair. George traps, that puts Beverly in rotation to his man Murray. And what it does is Kawhi gets face cut by Gary Harris, being an extremely smart basketball player, for the easy layup. Here we get a single coverage on Jokic. He's going to kind of bounce out and find Murray, who's going to attack downhill. This forces Zubac to help baseline and find Jokic for the pick and pop. Now here you might think this is Kawhi's rotation, but normally they stunt at pick and pops, and this leaves Jokic open to knock down the easy jumper. The Clippers defense was really bad at times. Here we can see Paul George get switched onto Jokic. Harrell is going to go for a strong side trap again. Morris is just going to face cut Kawhi, who shouldn't have that responsibility. Kawhi fouls him. Next possession, we pass the ball to Jokic. Just a first cut look here. Watch Lou Williams on the weak side, just completely not in defensive position, turning his head. That allows Craig to get in for the easy layup, and Paul George can't get beat that easy. Now the Nuggets did okay in single coverage, but it kind of comes down to, do you want to let Jokic beat you in the post, or do you want to let the Nuggets beat you? And I think the Clippers allowed the Nuggets to beat them and try to trap and take the ball out of Jokic's hand. They had a couple good possessions, but overall just wasn't the defensive performance you expected. In the next play we're going to look at here, the similar scenario pops up where we get the ball to Jokic and then a trap comes, and then Kawhi, who would look like it would normally take Gary Harris in this scenario, but he passes him off, and it would have been an easy layup if Jokic wasn't fouled. When we go back and look at film from the series, we can see Kawhi here is responsible for the low man, so when a cutter comes, he takes the cutter Gary Harris, then recovers for the steal. In the next example, we're going to see the same thing from Shamet, be responsible for the cutter. Good job staying vertical. And then here, we're going to see the exact scenario where Kawhi passes off the cutter, doesn't stay with him, and then recovers out to shooters on the weak side. But what didn't make sense was when Grant had Lou Williams on him, they decided to double him in the post. He skips it, and in this scenario, Green should have the rotation here, but he's stuck up top, and this allows Jamal Murray a wide open three that he knocks down. Now, while it's not a post-up, I want to highlight this after timeout from Mike Malone. So here we're going to see Gary Harris flip it back to Murray. Then he's going to go and set a pin down for Jokic. He's being guarded by Lou Williams. So Lou Williams isn't going to help at all because he's not a great defensive player. Knowing that, they get Jokic coming off the curl. He shows his eyes to the rim, pulls help, and finds a cutter for an easy dunk. Great design after the timeout. Now let's dive into the Jokic and Murray two-man game. We get a play call here from Mike Malone, horns twist. You can see him saying twist here. This is just a ball screen on one side, you typically followed by a ball screen on another side. Jokic and Murray turn it into a handoff. Murray gets downhill versus drop coverage, finishes a tough layup through contact. Another handoff example here. We're going to see Murray come up for the dribble handoff. Morris kind of hedges a little bit. That allows Jokic to get downhill. Now, who would be open in this scenario? I think the Clippers do a really good job. But we can see Gary Harris sneaking on the weak side. Jokic anticipates this and finds him with the awesome pass for an easy layup. The Clippers had a lot of problems defending the ball screen. Here we're going to see a ball screen with Jokic and Murray. We're going to get a switch from Zubac, who stays on Murray. Beverly's going to fake like he's going to stay on Jokic and then does a late trap. But now, this trap isn't very good. You can see the easy pocket of space to pass it to Jokic, who gets the ball in the short roll, playing 4-on-3, automatically notices Grant in the corner with a nice no-look pass. He just misses the shot. Now, the Clippers had some success when they went away from their typical drop ball screen coverage. This possession was weird to me. Morris should be up a little bit higher. He has the ability to blitz. He should be blitzing this, in my opinion. Murray gets downhill and just hits him with a super nifty behind-the-back pocket pass, but just in no man's land there for Morris. That just doesn't make any sense to me. When you have someone like Harrell, I agree. I think he should be in more of like a flat drop, or like this scenario where he's a little bit higher. He's able to stunt, use his athleticism a little bit more. Murray makes the right read, just makes the wrong pass here. And then in this example, we have Paul George on Jokic. This should be a switch, but since Lou Williams is defending Murray, George is now in drop coverage or flat trip. I don't know what this is, but his ability to recover here, doesn't allow Jokic to score. It just doesn't make any sense, some of the coverages they're running. Now, I want to show why the late game coverage was so weird to me, but this is the reason why. In drop coverage, we can see Harrell here is in like a shorter drop. Murray does a good job of keeping his pivot foot and making a pull-up. Paul George just stands there and calls for a travel. If we look back, we can see Murray, as he comes off of this, keeps his left pivot foot down and is able to rise up with good balance and make an easy floater. Next possession, we have a spread ball screen with Green in drop coverage. We can see Murray turn the corner here. Bev gets caught on the screen just a little bit, and all it is just an easy open floater for Murray. Another example is this side ball screen here. Harrell is in drop coverage again. Murray ends up making him pay with the easy three. This is just an uncontested off the bounce three that Murray has been hitting all playoffs. Well, the Clippers, they had to adjust. So the adjustment they made was in the second half to go to more hard hedging or even trapping. Here we see a little soft trap on Murray. That allows Jokic to roll uncontested. He ends up missing the floater with a good contest by Kawhi. But the issue is the process versus the outcome. The process is okay, the outcome's great, but the issue is as the game goes on, now the process is allowing Jokic to look off easy defenders, playing 4-on-3, finding Gary Harris. So you can see, look at Millsap, that draws in Reggie Jackson, leaving Gary Harris for the wide open three. Another example in this possession here, we can see Harrell coming up for that hard hedge or trap on Murray. He finds Jokic. Jokic looks at the corner. Greens, who is responsible for guarding these two players, Harris and Millsap, is now caught in between. So he looks off Green, who jumps the corner. Then Millsap catches and knocks down the easy open three. And then again here in the fourth quarter, they switch it, but then for some reason with Paul George on Jokic, he's going to go and jump Murray from the ball side, so that leaves no help defense, and Jokic is allowed to make an easy floater. And ultimately, the Clippers defense just was unable to make the most important plays at the most important time. Here we see them in the fourth quarter basically going to their best lineup, switching everything, caused the Nuggets some problems. Here we can see a little bit of stagnation from the offense. Nuggets keep probing and keep trying to find something, but eventually they get a deflection. It falls right to Murray, who knocks down this pull-up. Another example of this here is where, the ball is being brought up by MPJ. He ends up looking to maybe get attacked downhill. The ball gets tipped. Murray ends up driving right into a walk-up three and knocks down the crazy three-point shot. That puts them up 15 with Jokic off the floor. Stuff like this just can't happen in the fourth quarter of Game 7. Now I want to switch over to the Clippers offense. Now the Clippers offense actually had pretty good looks, but they did something weird where in the first half, they ran this 21 chase action, or some people call it pistol action, as Van Gundy alluded to on the broadcast. But you get this step-up ball screen from a guard, and then followed by a side ball screen from a big. So here Zubac goes into the side ball screen. This just turns into a side ball screen action. Zubac is found on the roll. Now this was extremely effective action, especially in the second quarter. In the first half total, the Clippers ran this action 12 times. They scored 12 points and had 1.12 points per possession, right? A really good play. They hurt the Nuggets in every sort of way you can imagine. They hurt him with the initial ball screen. They hurt him with the chase action. They hurt him with cutters. When they got to the second side and had Kawhi come off a pin down, he ended up knocking down 2 threes. It seemed like the Nuggets had no answer. Malone called a quick timeout just to adjust because they were running this set so efficiently. So you get to think they're going to, what did the Nuggets figure out in the second half to stop the Clippers? Well, nothing, because the Clippers ran this play 2 times in the second half. The first time at the end of the third quarter, where you see this action here, Lou Williams ends up driving, ends up missing a pretty open layup, a layup he would normally make. And then in the fourth quarter, with about 4.5 minutes left, when the game's pretty much done, where we get Jokic switch onto Kawhi, and Kawhi misses a 3. The fact that they didn't run this play more than 2 times in the second half is really, really bad in my opinion. But full credit to the Nuggets. I look forward to doing the Nuggets and Lakers series. I have to get the Celtics Heat series done as well. If you guys enjoyed this breakdown, please feel free to like and subscribe. Look forward to doing more.